She promised a single drop of blood could replace every needle you've ever feared. She convinced investors, government officials, and the entire tech industry it was true. It wasn't. This is the story of Elizabeth Holmes and the $9 billion company built on a lie. In 2003, at just 19 years old, Holmes dropped out of Stanford to found a company called Theranos, built around one extraordinary claim: a machine that could run dozens of medical tests using nothing more than a finger prick's worth of blood. Traditional blood testing meant needles, vials, and days of waiting. Holmes promised something radically different: faster, cheaper, and far less painful technology she claimed could detect everything from cancer to cholesterol almost instantly. The pitch worked spectacularly. Within a decade, Theranos was valued at $9 billion. Holmes became the youngest self-made female billionaire in the world, gracing the cover of Fortune magazine, her face becoming synonymous with Silicon Valley disruption itself. Her board read like a who's who of American power: former secretaries of state, retired senators, high-ranking military officials, drawn in by Holmes's confident vision, and, as later testimony would reveal, remarkably little actual technical scrutiny. Wealthy private investors poured money in, including media titan Rupert Murdoch, convinced by Holmes's charisma and the sheer audacity of the promise that a single drop of blood could replace an entire lab visit. Behind closed doors, the technology simply didn't work as promised. Theranos was secretly relying on conventional testing machines made by an outside company to process most patient samples, contradicting everything the public pitch claimed. Former employees later described an intensely secretive workplace culture, where questioning the technology's actual capabilities could mean immediate termination, and strict non-disclosure agreements kept concerns from ever reaching outside ears. Some employees who raised concerns internally were dismissed or pushed out entirely. A few, driven by conscience, eventually became the confidential sources who would help unravel the company's carefully constructed public image. In 2015, the Wall Street Journal began publishing a series of investigative articles questioning the accuracy of Theranos' technology, built on sources inside the company willing to risk everything to reveal what was actually happening. Theranos responded aggressively, reportedly threatening legal action against sources and journalists alike. But the reporting continued, piece by piece, dismantling years of carefully cultivated hype and investor confidence. The stakes weren't just financial. Real patients were receiving blood test results from technology that didn't reliably work, results that could mean the difference between an accurate diagnosis and a dangerously wrong one. Federal health regulators eventually inspected Theranos' labs directly and found serious deficiencies, ultimately banning Holmes from operating a testing laboratory for 2 years, a devastating blow to the company's core business model. The Securities and Exchange Commission charged Holmes with fraud in March 2018. Theranos, once valued at $9 billion, officially dissolved just 6 months later, evaporating almost as quickly as it had risen. Hundreds of employees lost their jobs as the company wound down completely. Investors, including some of the wealthiest and most sophisticated people in the world, watched hundreds of millions of dollars simply disappear. In September 2021, Holmes stood trial in San Jose, California, facing charges including conspiracy and wire fraud. The trial stretched 4 months, unpacking a story that had once captivated, then horrified, the business world. Dozens of witnesses took the stand, including former employees, investors, and patients, painting a detailed picture of a company built increasingly on performance rather than working technology. After 7 days of deliberation, the jury found Holmes guilty on 4 counts of defrauding investors in January 2022. though she was acquitted on charges specifically related to defrauding patients directly. At her sentencing, Holmes told the court she regretted her failings, quoting a poem about wanting to change herself. The judge sentenced her to over 11 years in federal prison, calling the case troubling on every level. Her former partner and company president, Sunny Balwani, was separately convicted on similar fraud and conspiracy charges, sentenced to nearly 13 years in federal prison of his own. Her conviction was upheld on appeal in 2025. She and Balwani were together ordered to pay over $450 million in restitution to investors who lost everything, including $125 million owed to Rupert Murdoch alone. Theranos is now taught extensively in business schools, not just as a fraud case, but as a study in how boards, investors, and entire industries can be swept up by charisma without demanding basic proof. Theranos no longer exists, but its story remains one of Silicon Valley's most studied cautionary tales, not just about fraud, but about how far charisma alone can carry a lie before the truth catches up. Elizabeth Holmes convinced some of the most powerful, credentialed people in America that a single drop of blood could change medicine forever. It couldn't. If stories like this keep you up wondering what else is hiding in plain sight, hit subscribe. New stories like this one every week.